Egghead Hockey here. Today we're going to be talking about 5 potential landing spots for one of the best UFA defensemen this year, Torey Krug. Thanks to all the people who subscribed and shared my channel with other people. In my mock draft video, I noticed that we exceeded my like goal, so I will do a part 2 video, but it probably won't be my next video. Before we get into today's video, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Anyways, let's get into the video. At number 5, I have Boston. Obviously, I was going to put Krug's current team on the list as a player of that skill isn't usually left to walk without an offer, but I emphasize the usually because Boston might not be able to sign. Anyways, Boston needs to sign a top 4 defenseman because their back end is getting pretty weak and they don't have many high-ranked defensive prospects. Urho Vakanainen is their only defensive prospect inside their top 10 prospect lists, and you can't depend on one prospect to be your whole defensive future. That's one defensive prospect for every 10 prospects. That's pretty bad. Boston has more of a need to sign Krug than an ability to sign Krug. Boston has quite the salary cap conundrum, and the Bruins have to re-sign Jake DeBrusk, a backup goalie, Zdeno Chara, and others. If Chara retires, that would help the Bruins with their budget, but it would leave a tall hole to fill, pun intended. And the salary cap raise is extremely unlikely based on the amount of money the NHL is going to lose because of this lockdown. Boston really wants to sign Krug, and Krug wants to stay if he can, but they probably can't sign him, so that's why I've got them up at 5. The only way Boston can really sign Krug is if GM Don Sweeney finds a way to clear up some cap space. They could do this by buying out David Krejci or, dumping off some other big contracts. This would save them monumental amounts of money, and I'm not saying Krejci's bad, but he is massively underperforming for someone who's getting paid $7 million. At number 4, we have Florida. Florida will probably let either Evgeny Dadonov or Mike Hoffman walk, and that will leave quite a bit of cap space. So you can expect Florida to go after Torey Krug, and after all, these are the guys who offered a 30-year-old goalie $10 million a year for 7 years. The reason Florida would let a star like Dadonov or Hoffman walk is because they have multiple up-and-coming forwards who may crack the already strong offensive lineup next year. And to sign both of them, it would cost around $15 million. And I know Florida wants to work on its defensive game, and to do that, you need money. These up-and-coming forwards are Grigory Denisenko, Owen Tippett, and Henrik Borgström. These 3 will most likely make a big impact next year and hopefully help and learn from Jonathan Huberdeau and Alexander Barkov. Florida's defensive side of the game is not looking great, with Keith Yandel and Aaron Ekblad carrying the whole back end. With overall weakness throughout the defensive lineup, there is no question that GM Dale Talon will pursue Krug or at least a good defenseman. Krug isn't a shutdown defenseman by any means, but he still has a pretty good defensive game, and in today's game, two-way defensemen are the most dominant. Krug will help aid the forwards with his puck-moving skills, and he will also help the 3 up-and-coming forwards as he is a veteran player with a solid two-way game, and he will help Huberdeau and Barkov with his playmaking skill set. If Krug signs with Florida, they are going to have one deadly first line of defense with Ekblad and Krug playing together. At number 3, we have the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens are aggressive spenders, and they like to go for big fish free agents. Like, for example, when they offer-sheeted a Sebastian Aho last year. This time, it's different. Krug is a UFA, not an RFA, so they will have a much easier time with signing him, and Montreal's defensive lineup definitely could use some upgrades behind Jeff Petrie and Shea Weber. With one of the best defensive prospects, Alexander Romanov, most likely coming to the NHL next year, the Habs could use a good line mate for him, and Romanov could learn a lot from Krug. The Canadiens have been trying to push for the playoffs in the past few years, and I'm a bit unsure if they will start to rebuild or go all out. I assume that they will try to push for the playoffs as they have 3 key players who are entering the last year of their contract, and these players are Thomas Tatar, Brendan Gallagher, and Jeff Petrie. If the next season doesn't work out for them, they can always use these 3 players as trade chips. Montreal's signing of Krug all depends on what GM Marc Bergevin thinks the Habs will be next year. Another key point that might convince Krug to sign is that Jeff Petrie is his old teammate from Michigan State. At number 2, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. The Knights have been looking for a defenseman ever since they traded top prospect Eric Brandstrom and Colin Miller, and they recently traded for Alec Martinez at the deadline, but he's declined quite a bit and he's more of a depth player now. Vegas doesn't have any highly touted defensive prospects, and this is a serious problem. Vegas' blue line isn't bad, but it definitely could be better. And I'm not saying they need a whole defensive makeover, they just need one good player to hold it up. Krug may be the perfect fit. He is an elite defender, and him with Shea Theodore would be a deadly combo. Vegas' blue line would almost be perfected if they signed Krug. But if the salary cap isn't raised, they will only have around $9 million of free space. And that's barely enough to sign Krug, and I'm sure they want to sign more than one player this offseason. They could ship someone out to free up cap space, and I'd say that person would be Alec Martinez. Because if they sign Krug, he will probably become a scratch, and to kill two birds with one stone, they could also trade Martinez for a defensive prospect, and this way they found an easy way to solve both problems. Obviously, you'd have to add some picks to get a solid prospect, because Martinez isn't worth too much. At number 1, I have the Detroit Red Wings. At first, this one may seem crazy, but wait. Krug is from Michigan, and that's where he's spending his time in isolation. He played college hockey at Michigan State, and obviously, as a kid, he was a huge Red Wings fan. Krug also played for Jeff Blashill in the USHL, and he is the current coach of the Detroit Red Wings. This almost fits perfectly, and probably one of Krug's childhood heroes, Steve Yzerman, is the coach of Detroit, so that's another cherry on top of the already tall sundae. Krug will also be very good for the team, as he could be a mentor to Detroit's top defensive prospects, Moritz Seider and Dennis Cholowski. And if all that doesn't convince you, free agency is after the draft lottery. And we all know the Wings have a pretty high chance of getting generational talent, Alexis Lafreniere. Lafreniere may be able to carry the Red Wings out of the tall grave they've dug for themselves, and back into contention. And I'm sure Krug won't pass up the chance to play with and mentor a generational talent. Although the Wings suck right now, they have a very bright future with Philip Zadina, Dylan Larkin, Moritz Seider, and more. And I'm pretty sure Krug will want to be part of this bright future and live closer to his family. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Part 2 of the mock draft is coming soon, and there will be more videos coming out this week, so make sure you check them out. Bye.